John Francis Pastorius III, aka Jaco Pastorius, was born on December 1st, 1951 in Norristown, Pennsylvania. He was the oldest of 3 boys in the family. His mother, Stephanie Catherine Pastorius, was Finnish, while his father, John Francis Pastorius Jr., aka Jack, was German and worked professionally as a musician. Jaco's father was a singer and jazz drummer, often traveling due to his musical career. When Jaco was 8 years old, his family moved to Oakland Park near Fort Lauderdale. Adding to his interesting background, Jaco had a connection to early American history through his ancestor, Francis Daniel Pastorius, a noted abolitionist. The true origin for Jaco's nickname has been highly disputed. According to an interview conducted in 2001 with Jaco's father, Jack, the nickname was first used during his father, Jack's service in the Navy. He then started calling his son Jaco during his early childhood. Adding another layer to the story, Jaco's brother revealed in the Robert Trujillo documentary, Jaco, that it was their mother who actually coined the nickname. The nickname was further influenced by Pastorius' love for sports and possibly the umpire, Jaco Conlon. The final transformation of the nickname came about in 1974 when it was misspelled as Jaco by his neighbor, pianist Alex Darkey. Jaco's brother also affectionately called him Mowgli, likening him to the adventurous wild boy from the Jungle Book. This nickname was a reflection of Jaco's energetic nature and his love for spending time outdoors, often shirtless, engaging in activities like climbing trees, swimming in the ocean, and exploring the woods. Jaco's early life was marked by various interests and talents. He attended St. Clement's Catholic School in Wilton Manors, Florida, and served as an altar boy at the church, where he took the confirmation name Anthony. Jaco Pastorius was known for his competitive spirit and excelled in sports like baseball, basketball, and football. However, a severe wrist injury sustained while playing football at age 13 led to surgery and ultimately ended his ability to play the drums, an instrument that he had been playing up until that time. This injury marked a turning point in his life, eventually leading him toward his legendary career as a bass guitarist. Interestingly, Jaco noted that he wasn't significantly influenced by bass players in his early years, largely because bassists weren't as prominently recognized as other musicians. Instead, his influences came from the overall sound and feel of the music he listened to, particularly from the work of artists involved in the Atlantic record sessions, such as Aretha Franklin. Musicians like Bernard Odom, Bootsy Collins, and James Jamerson, as well as Duck Dunn, were among the few bassists who did leave a mark on him. His journey into jazz introduced him to the work of upright bass players like Paul Chambers and Gary Peacock, while he admired Charles Mingus more for his orchestration and composition. Mingus's influence on Pastorius was profound, not just in bass playing, but in musical creativity and expression. Jaco's journey into the world of music was marked by a transition from drums to bass, driven by necessity and a passion for jazz. Initially part of a funk rock band named Los Olas Brass, he played the drums, covering everything from R&B to soul hits. However, after breaking his wrist playing football and the departure of their bass player, Pastorius made the switch to bass guitar, quickly mastering it within a week. Jaco's venture into playing the fretless bass was inspired by his desire to emulate the sound of an upright bass, a sound he was drawn to due to his growing interest in jazz. Jaco owned an upright bass, but it was destroyed by the humid Florida climate. This loss led him to a creative solution. He removed the frets from his Fender bass, effectively transforming it into a fretless instrument. This modification was a significant step in his development as a musician and marked the beginning of a new chapter in his musical journey. Jaco had a very unique way of looking at the instrument, and this translates directly to his playing. A lot of bassists tried to copy his style, but always fell short because they never really delved into his mindset. Jaco was inspired by a wide array of genres and artists, shaping his unique approach to the bass guitar. Growing up in the 60s, Jaco was heavily influenced by the popular music of that time, tuning in a radio to absorb the sounds of Elvis, the Beatles, James Brown, and Frank Sinatra, to name a few. This diverse musical environment was crucial in developing his eclectic taste and style. Jaco's approach to learning the bass was predominantly visual. He observed other musicians, studying their techniques and applying what he saw to his playing. His dad, Jack, offered crucial advice on finger spacing, which greatly influenced his technique as well. By the age of 17, Jaco had developed a strong appreciation for jazz, leading him to save money and purchase an upright bass. The deep and mellow tone of the upright bass was particularly appealing to Jaco, despite the financial strain that it placed on him. However, maintaining the instrument in Florida's humid climate proved very challenging. The humidity eventually took its toll, causing the bass to crack. Faced with this setback, Jaco made the pivotal decision to trade his damaged upright bass for a 1962 Fender Jazz, an instrument that would become closely associated with his innovative playing style. During his teenage years, Pastorius played bass for Wayne Cochran and the CC Riders, gaining valuable experience in a professional music setting. This period was crucial in honing his skills and understanding of music, especially in a band context. In the early 1970s, Jaco's musical journey took him to the University of Miami, where he taught bass. It was here that he met Pat Metheny and formed an instant bond with him. Pat was also a faculty member at the university. Their collaboration led to the recording of an untitled album, Jaco, in 1974. This project marked the beginning of Jaco's emergence in the jazz world. Pastorius' relationship with Metheny continued to flourish as he played on Metheny's debut album, Bright Size Life, released in 1976. This album showcased Jaco's growing proficiency and innovative approach to the bass guitar. The year 1976 also saw the release of Jaco's self-titled debut album, Jaco Pastorius, under the Epic label. This album was a huge milestone in his career, featuring collaborations with renowned artists such as Michael Brecker, Randy Brecker, Herbie Hancock, Sam and Dave, David Sanborn, and Wayne Shorter. The album was a showcase of his versatility and virtuosity, traversing through genres with the ease of a maestro. From Latin jazz inflections to the grooves of R&B and funk, Jaco demonstrated his ability to adapt and enhance each style with his bass playing. The legendary R&B duo Sam and Dave lent their voices to the highly grooving rock track Come On, Come Over, while the iconic Herbie Hancock graced the album with his presence, further elevating the record's stature. Jaco Pastorius collaborated with Joni Mitchell on several of her albums, including Hajira in 76, Don Juan's Reckless Daughter in 77, Mingus in 79, and the live album Shadows and Light in 1980. His innovative bass playing added a new depth and complexity to Mitchell's music.
Lucky and you make a little money. I followed him down the strip. He picked out a booth at Circus where the cowgirls filled the room with their big balloons. The cleaner was pitching with purpose. He had dinos and Pooh Bears and lions, pink and blue there. You couldn't lose there.
With his lyrical and melodic bass lines intertwining with Joni's poetic lyrics and unique guitar tuning. On Hajira, Jaco's fretless bass complemented Mitchell's open tunings, providing a fluid and expressive foundation that many consider to be among some of the best examples of his work. The album's name itself, meaning journey, reflected the nomadic spirit of both the music and Mitchell's life at the time, with Jaco's bass lines serving as the undercurrent to that wandering exploration. When Jaco first entered Joni Mitchell's musical orbit, his reputation preceded him. Though Joni herself had not heard his playing, her search for a distinctive bass sound, a warmth and fullness, contrary to the prevailing deadened bass tones of the time, had been frustrating. The vogue of the era favored a really muted bass presence, which clashed with her desire for a sound reminiscent of the resonant, analog tones of earlier decades. Jaco, however, embodied the sonic qualities she sought. He wasn't afraid to venture away from the conventional bass root notes so that he could explore the mid-range and redefine the instrument's role within the composition. This aligned perfectly with Joni's own artistic explorations, as highlighted by her prior work, where traditional bass roots were abandoned for more adventurous paths, a concept that had flustered other bassists but delighted Jaco entirely. Their collaboration was marked by an appreciation for spontaneity. Despite Jaco's sometimes unruly demeanor, a trait that not everybody appreciated, Joni found a kindred spirit in him. She admired his sound, which lacked the digital enhancements common today, rich and expansive in its natural form. This sound was particularly evident the night Jaco commandeered her new Roland Jazz Chorus amp during a performance, showcasing his formidable presence both on and off the stage. Before he became a household name in jazz circles, Jaco had an audacious spirit that matched his immense talent. At a Weather Report concert in Miami, he didn't just meet the renowned keyboardist Joe Zawinul, he boldly introduced himself as the greatest bass player in the world. This fearless self-assurance intrigued Joe enough to ask for a demo tape, which upon listening, revealed the truth behind Jaco's claim. His skill was undeniable. Jaco and Joe began a correspondence that would change the course of jazz fusion. He sent Joe a rough mix of his solo album, which further cemented his reputation as a bass virtuoso. So when Alphonso Johnson parted ways with the Weather Report, the path was totally cleared for Jaco to step in. He made a high-impact entrance on the album Black Market, where he and Johnson both played bass. And by that time, Heavy Weather was recorded in 1977. Jaco was the band's sole bass player. The album was a critical success, featuring the Grammy-nominated hit Birdland, and it established Jaco as a central figure in the jazz fusion movement. In the late 70s, the exceptional abilities and undeniable charisma of Jaco Pastorius caught the eye of Warner Brothers, leading them to offer him a contract that reflected their belief in his potential for commercial success. Leveraging this opportunity, Jaco formed the ambitious Word of Mouth Big Band, a testament to his vision and influence. This ensemble of virtuosos included Mike Stern on the guitar, Chuck Finley on the trumpet, Howard Johnson on the tuba, and a reeds section featuring Wayne Shorter, Michael Brecker, and Tom Scott, with Toots Thielmans on the harmonica. The rhythm section was no less impressive, with Kenwood Dennard, Peter Erskine, and Jack DeJohnette on drums, complemented by Don Elias on percussion. Together, they recorded the album Word of Mouth, released by Warner Brothers in 1981. The following year, in 1982, Jaco embarked on a tour with an expanded 21-piece iteration of Word of Mouth. It was during this tour, in Japan, that Jaco exhibited troubling behavior that signaled underlying issues, including an episode where he shaved his head, painted his face black, and threw his bass into Hiroshima Bay. Later in 1982, Jaco was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, providing context to earlier behaviors that had been dismissed as mere eccentricities or character flaws. Also, Jaco faced another challenge during this time. Tensions within the band The Weather Report, fueled by Jaco's other commitments and growing disenchantment with Joe Zawinul's direction of the band's sound, culminated in his departure. Despite critical acclaim, commercial success eluded Word of Mouth, and Warner Brothers expressed dissatisfaction with Jaco's subsequent demos for Holiday for Pans. Jaco released Invitation in 1983, a live album from the Japanese tour, but as his personal struggles with substance abuse escalated, his professional opportunities dwindled, often leading to periods of homelessness. 1982 really was the start of Jaco's downward spiral, marked by a series of legal and personal troubles. Jaco faced legal consequences after threatening a police officer, an incident followed by a probation violation, followed by a drunken escapade. By 1984, Jaco was spending most of his time in New York, and stories of his erratic behavior, from public drunkenness to damaging his guitars, began to circulate among family and friends. Jaco was also diagnosed as manic depressive, which brought about intense creative highs, but was made much worse by alcohol, leading to a further decline in his condition. His marriage to Ingrid Pastorius ended in divorce, and he often found himself destitute, occasionally sleeping in parks back in Fort Lauderdale. 1985 did bring a high point, however. Jimmy Page recalled a jam session where he jammed with Jaco Pastorius. This session, characterized by spontaneity and raw musical exchange, took place at the Lone Star Cafe in New York City on April 30th of 1985. This lineup was a constellation of stars, including Page, guitarist Kenny Gwynn, keyboardist Scott Brown, percussionist Jerry Gonzalez, and Chris Slade on the drums, who was then part of the supergroup The Firm, with Page, Paul Rogers, and Tony Franklin. Tony Franklin, who actually invited Page over, is known in his own right as a master of the fretless bass, and he has openly cited Jaco as his foremost influence, which is a testament to Jaco's pervasive impact on musicians across genres. So Franklin brought Page and Slade along to the Lone Star gig, fresh off the firm's performance at the Madison Square Garden. And that evening turned into an impromptu showcase of Pastorius' genius on the electric bass. The drummer accompanying Jaco, found through a small ad, struggled to keep pace with Jaco. In a generous act, Jaco invited Jimmy Page to join him on stage. Drummer Chris Slade, seizing the opportunity, stepped into the jam, bringing a highly experienced and fervent dynamic to the set. This collaboration relegated the original drummer to a spectator at the table, while Slade and Jaco found a remarkable groove. Jimmy Page witnessed firsthand the immense synergy between Jaco and Slade, where he gained a deeper appreciation for both artists. That night at the Lone Star Cafe, Jimmy Page was left with a profound impression of Jaco Pastorius as a consummate musician, a monster of a player whose command of the bass guitar was unparalleled. The jam session became a storied memory, capturing the essence of Jaco's legendary status in the world of music. 1985 also saw a jam Jaco had with Frank Gambale, among other musicians at the Musicians Institute. Jaco was in fine form, and it appeared in this video that Frank was loving the intense jam throughout. Jaco was featured in a 50-minute instructional video titled Modern Electric Bass. Despite the challenging personal circumstances he faced at the time, including homelessness and being blacklisted by many in the music industry due to his depression and substance abuse, Jaco managed to deliver an insightful and educational performance. Interviewed and accompanied by session bassist Jerry Jamont, known for his work with icons like George Benson and Aretha Franklin, Jaco's interaction with the video was candid and vulnerable, poignantly highlighted when he responded to a question about his status among the greats.
You know, a lot has been said about you, but the main thing is that people recognize the fact that you're able to play with real sincerity every style of music, not only every style, but you can play all parts of a given piece at the same time on this one instrument, the bass. Now, because of this, a lot of people have gone crazy trying to duplicate what you do. People have become great fans of the bass and given it quite a bit of attention. How do you feel about that?
Give me a gig, you know.
This video, shot when Jaco was at a particularly dark period in his life, offered a glimpse into his complex world. The bass he played, whether or not it was the infamous bass of doom with a P-bass neck, was not his own but a borrowed instrument, underscoring his dire situation at the time. The instructional video showcases Pastorius' mastery of the instrument, as well as innovative techniques and his narrative on choosing his electric bass guitar model. Modern Electric Bass also features a notable 20-minute performance with musicians John Schofield and Kenwood Dennard, which yielded some pretty solid jams. During the year 1986, Jaco would perform throughout Europe, playing everywhere from Italy to Australia. Later in the year, he was back jamming out at places in the U.S. alongside Bob Weir from the Grateful Dead as part of Brian Melvin and Night Food. In 1987, at the onset of what would become the final chapter in his life, Jaco Pastorius returned to Fort Lauderdale, accompanied by his girlfriend Teresa, in an attempt to find some semblance of normalcy and stability. Despite his efforts to recapture the equilibrium that once fueled his creative genius, Jaco was soon grappling with the resurgence of mental health challenges that had shadowed much of his adult life. This period was marked by erratic behavior and a series of unconventional performances that confounded audiences and colleagues alike. The man who once held stages with his virtuosic command of the bass now found himself in situations that were a far cry from the glory of his past achievements.
On your song, Portrait of Tracy?
That's my first wife.
Is that your first name?
My first wife.
Did you overdub those harmonics
No.
on Portrait of Tracy?
I've never overdone.
That's the most beautiful song.
His struggles were not confined to the stage. They spilled over into his personal life, leading to multiple encounters with law enforcement and resulting in a series of brief incarcerations. These episodes were symptomatic of the deeper battle Pastorius faced against an illness that was not only misunderstood, but also threatened his career and well-being. The man who had revolutionized the world of jazz with his fretless bass was now in a fight for stability and health, a fight that would ultimately prove to be overwhelming. On September 1987, Jaco faced a tragic end to his life. After attempting to gain access to a nightclub called the Midnight Bottle Club in Florida and being denied entry, his frustration boiled over. Jaco had violently kicked his way through a glass door, only to be involved in a physical confrontation with bouncer Luke Haven. Luke was a trained martial artist. The encounter left Jaco severely injured. He was hospitalized and fell into a coma due to a brain hemorrhage. Jaco succumbed to his injuries at Broward General Medical Center. He passed away at the age of 35. His life marked by both musical genius and a tragic struggle with his inner turmoil. Luke Haven was charged with aggravated battery. The beating was so severe that had Jaco survived, he would have permanently lost the use of his right eye and left arm, as stated by his doctors. Jaco's tragic demise was compounded by the legal aftermath. Luke Haven, the man responsible for the fatal beating of Jaco, served a mere 4 months in his 21-month prison sentence. This leniency left many, including the prosecutor and Jaco's family, deeply disappointed. Haven's early release was facilitated by the credit he received for time already spent in jail and his participation in a job assistance program. Additionally, he benefited from the state's attempts to alleviate prison overcrowding, receiving provisional gain time and incentive gain time, which further reduced his sentence. Jaco's former wife, Ingrid, and the mother of his 2 children, expressed her grievance, equating Haven's time served to a month for each child Jaco left behind. She had consented to the plea bargain under the assumption of a longer incarceration period and was unaware of the gain time that would so drastically shorten Haven's prison term. Her regret was clear. Had she known the full extent of the sentence reductions, she would have opposed the agreement. The case highlighted the complexities and often controversial nature of sentencing and prison time reductions, leaving a sense of injustice in the wake of profound loss to the music world and Jaco's family. But even after his untimely death, Jaco's influence did not wane. His approach to the bass had been studied and emulated by countless musicians, and his compositions are seen as benchmarks for bass performance and creativity. The Jaco Pastorius Big Band, led by bassist Peter Graves, continued his legacy by revisiting his music and compositions with a contemporary perspective, releasing the Grammy-nominated album Word of Mouth Revisited in 2003. This album not only celebrated Jaco's music, but also featured a number of prominent bassists who paid tribute to his enduring impact. Jaco's life and music have been the subject of various documentaries and books, with filmmakers and authors delving into both his artistic genius and the personal struggles he endured. The documentary Jaco, produced by Metallica's Robert Trujillo, was released in 2014, providing an in-depth look into his life, career, and the legacy he left behind. The film brought together the voices of family members, fellow musicians, and admirers, painting a multifaceted portrait of Jaco's life and work. The indelible mark Jaco left on the world of music continues to resonate, ensuring that his innovative spirit lives on in countless bass lines and solos that echo his unorthodox yet profoundly musical approach to the electric bass. Jaco dreamed in the bass clef, and his dream still sings in the hands of those he inspired. If you like what you see here and want to dig into some more, make sure you kindly subscribe and join the family. And while you're at it, if you could smack that like button, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for watching.